Hey everybody, Jason Sherman here. In today's episode of Zero to CEO, I speak with a vibe coding expert, Lazar Jovanovic. Welcome to the show.
Hey, nice to meet you, Jason.
And we're going to be talking about how you can build anything with AI in about 48 hours, which is kind of a loaded statement because there's a lot of, pros and cons I'm seeing online. A lot of people talking about vibe coding. There's a lot of like experts, and I want to hear what you think about this. A lot of experts online are saying, sure, vibe coding is this new thing and you can build a platform or a website. But in the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see companies hiring senior architects and senior developers to fix all of the vibe coding issues that have come across these companies. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the mistake we're all making is we're making assumptions on something that didn't exist a year ago, thinking we know how it's going to look like 5 years from now, right? Experts and vibe coders alike, we all make our own assumptions based on what was true in the past, right? What we feel the technology kind of trajectory of scale was going in previous years prior to this, right? The way I look at it, though, is the invention of electricity versus comparing it to smartphones or the internet. This is a complete paradigm shift in my mind, right? To where yes, people will maybe need to hire senior devs and architects to fix or scale up some of the code, but that's not what this is about, right?
Right.
What this is about is empowering people that never knew how to build anything to build a solution for their own problem, right?
Yeah, you bring up a good point. I'm going to tell you why. You said people who don't know how to do this or they haven't had a chance to do it, and vibe coding is basically democratizing the ability to do so. I've been using Cursor for quite some time now. I've been using Bolt and a couple other, even ChatGPT by training a coding GPT originally, right? And I've been able to spin up the beginnings of a platform with functionality in a back end within, like you said, about 48 hours. Now, is that scalable? Probably not. Is it functional enough to get 1,000 people to beta test it? Yes. Is that able to get me to the point where I can potentially get some seed money to, get a real team to help me build it and get marketing? Yes. I think that you're right. I think that people need to look at it for what it is. When you look at, and I want to ask you a question. Forget development for a second. What is the more difficult part about running a startup?
I depends on really what your background is, but the biggest problem will always be distribution, right? It will
Bingo.
always be
marketing and sales.
Yeah, getting 10 people to use it, getting your family members to use it, right? So it's that's why the whole debate of quality of code, UX, sure, it has its place, but way further down the road, people struggle with building anything to be used by anyone. And as you said, the goal is not to build Salesforce. The goal is not to disrupt Uber. The goal is to build something very small, get 100 people to pay for it, quit your job, right? And then hire one dev, and then the second dev, and then maybe one customer support agent, then a VA. All of a sudden, you're making $10,000, $15,000 a month, and you've outsourced all the labor, right? That's a fulfilling life for most of the humanity, I feel, right?
I agree. And let's just point out one thing, we're both saying here. If you have a background in marketing and sales and you know how to reach people, but you are not technical, you have to try to find a technical co-founder, and 99% of them are busy building their own startups. They're busy working at Google, Facebook, and other companies. They don't need to work with you because they're the developer. So it's so hard to get developers to work with you on an equity basis. Usually you have to pay them a lot of money, and then that takes how much time to build and so on and so forth. Vibe coding, in my personal opinion, is allowing these marketing and sales and business types to whip together their ideas that they know how to sell, but they don't know how to build. And that's very powerful.
Yep, exactly. That's what I'm seeing all the time. What I'm seeing actually is even more powerful to me, which is people just like to solve their own problems, right?
Yeah.
They don't want to pay for somebody else's solution. They just want to build something customizable for themselves, and that is how most builders start, right? And we're yet to see a unicorn built
Of course.
with vibe coding, but I think we're not that far away from it. Like
Right.
even the tool creators themselves. So, for instance, I know Lovable CEO Anton, for example, is just posted a couple of days ago that he will personally fund Lovable built apps. Right. So we have now the app builders themselves, vibe coding app builders themselves, invested into helping other vibe coders succeed. So anybody that doesn't think about scale coming in the next 5 years, at least in my book, I think are wrong about it. They're just looking at it from the wrong lens.
I agree.
The,
And they might even be threatened by it because at the end of the day, vibe coding is potentially taking away development jobs because instead of outsourcing to those teams that are constantly getting those little contracts, those little jobs, you won't need to. Now, that being said, there's an elephant in the room that we haven't talked about, and we're going to have to now. If you vibe code, and we'll talk about what vibe coding is in a second. If you vibe code a platform because you had an idea, you're a business marketing person, but you don't have a tech background, right? You have no idea what HTML, CSS, JavaScript is. You don't know Python. You don't know backend technologies. You don't know anything. And you're going to have this thing build it for you. How do you know if it's right? How do you know how to test it? How do you know what to tell it to do? How do you know how to make the functionality work if you don't know any of the terms? You don't know any of the lingo. You and I are developers. I mean, you're a developer. I'm a developer. I've been since the 90s, I've been programming. So how do non-programmers work with that?
well, first of all, I'm not a developer at all.
Okay.
I'm a business
I
guy.
am.
I'm a business guy 100%. I've never written a line
Wow.
of code in my life, and
That's
I've built
hilarious.
I've built over 50 applications, um, easily over 50 just since the beginning of the year. Um,
I love
I
that.
can talk from my standpoint. So from my point of view, it's like the whole nature of vibe coding is that type of exploration and letting into the vibes. So you said let's define vibe coding. Well, that's how I look at it. It's like who cares about any of these things, right? I will get it out there. I first want to see if anybody thinks this is something. Then I can think about all of these other things. And yes, people talk about security and talk about um, things of that nature, but I feel like that the infrastructure around these apps is just getting better and better because again, these
Yeah.
people are invested in making sure you're successful vibe coding as well. So, for instance, in the last couple of months, companies like Replit or Lovable now prohibited people from pasting API keys into the chat, or
Right.
they advise you to keep your projects private, your GitHub repos private. So, like, as we progress and as we
I
go
noticed there's some
along,
cool. I know there's some cool stuff too, like Vercel and Railway and other like
yeah,
hosts, and then GitHub, of course. Like if a key is public or seen, you get an error and you get like security messages like, hey, you got to get rid of that, put it into your your Git to ignore. Right. So
yeah,
yeah, very interesting point right there because that's a big problem with security. I mean, there's a lot of issues there. So like, okay, so you're not a developer, you're a business guy. There's business people out there. People have ideas all day long, but they haven't, first of all, they've never used AI. Maybe they've used ChatGPT a little bit. Maybe they've heard of it, but they have no idea what to do, step one, step two, step three. So what would you tell somebody who's watching or listening right now? They're a business person. They've never touched code in their life. How do they get started? How do they build something?
just go there and try it, right? Because you can watch, like, I have a boot camp. I'm not gonna plug it, right? Because it's like, yes, you can watch it and you will learn how to build the right way by watching it. But the only actual right way is to go and try it, right? Really, with no expectations, you just go in there.
When you say try it, what do you recommend? What are the top three tools to use?
I would personally start with Lovable always because
Okay.
I feel like Lovable has probably the easiest user experience for people to step into. You can have a fairly similar experience and outcome using Bolt or Replit as well. Although personally, I learned how to do this with Lovable, and I think
Lovable.
is just the smoothest ride to get you into the game. And
I think I would agree with you. I think Lovable is the most user friendly for non-tech people. I used it at first and thought it was just wait. It was like a coloring book for me, so I stopped using it. I tried Bolt. I found it to be a little too hands off, which, believe it or not, I don't like. And then Replit also just didn't really suit me. And then when I started using Cursor, I was like, I found what works for me. It's very hands-on. I can change the code myself. I can debug the code myself. I can really build it myself while the vibe coding is happening on the side as an assistant, which is making me be able to build something that usually takes me 2 weeks in about 2 days, which to me is really the goal here, right? And I think that people need to remember you're building something that usually takes a couple of weeks and a couple of days. Now, what are some of the mistakes people make when they do this, when they use vibe coding or when they use AI to build something?
So the biggest mistake that I see every day is a lack of prompting techniques and capabilities. People one shot something, they see a great outcome, and they all of a sudden think this AI thing knows everything about everything, including what's up here. And that's the biggest disconnect is that people blame AI, but it's usually our fault.
Yeah.
That's why before learning how to vibe code, you got to learn how to prompt first.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost like with a foreign language or with a sport. You don't go and play the game. You got to learn the rules
Right.
of the game first. And I think in that context, prompting is the essence. Providing contextual prompts is what's currently the biggest disconnect in getting the right outcomes. They call this thing, this paradigm in prompting, junk in, junk out. It's a very popular term and very well known among builders and non-builders alike, where, you know, if you give the wrong input, you cannot expect the output
Right.
to be any better. So,
that's why we had that huge boom in prompt engineers. I'm using air quotes
yeah.
during the 2022-23 timeframe. Everybody was getting hired 6 figures.
Yeah.
Right. We're not talking small little potatoes. $100,000 and plus per year to be a prompt engineer. And so you're right. It's the biggest. It's basically like programming, knowing how to talk to the tool, to the software. Right. And one of the things I would recommend, and maybe you do the same, is to tell people to ask ChatGPT what a good prompt would be for certain, scenarios, and it'll give you the best prompt, better than what you're going to give. Right.
Yeah. I built 10 custom GPTs myself for, again, people that do my boot camps for on Lovable for every specific step of the way. If you want a base prompt, there's a specific trained GPT for that, for debugging, Stripe integration, design guidelines, building PRDs, right? Project requirement documentation. I think that's the second biggest problem that I'm noticing is that people over vibe things.
Yeah.
And these agents are getting too powerful. So like, if you misdirect it, it's no longer like, oh, it's just going to build one feature the wrong way. It's actually steered off course so bad that it's no longer building the app you wanted it to build. So like my system and the way I do things and the way I try to teach people to do them is adopt a software architect mindset. You don't need to know how to code in order to be a good architect, right? You don't need to be a builder to know how to build a house, but you know that roof always comes last, right? It cannot come before the foundation. So like, just build documentation, or not yourself, obviously. You ask ChatGPT to do it based on your descriptions. It builds your PRDs, you upload them to your GitHub repo, and then have a vibe coding tool read the docs and build the plan, and then you become the boss. You become effectively the person just directing it.
You're a software manager. You're a project manager. And I agree. That's the way that people should look at it as well. I mean, if you want to learn how to code while you're doing it, which I always recommend that. I mean, learn some basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in the least, right? Just so you understand the structure. It'll make your job a lot easier, and you'll see that the results come out much better because you also understand. And it's not that hard to learn. I mean, you can learn using GPT, have it teach you in a couple months, or less, right? To really get going. Now, one last question before we talk about your 50-50 challenge. Where do you see the future of software engineering with AI in the future? Like, what are we looking at here?
Well, I personally feel like we're gonna have very autonomous agents operating according to, again, documentation specification created by software architects. So those who harness this and leverage this technology will be just able to deploy at massive speeds. And I do foresee also systems where the entryway for non-technicals may be actually higher, again, simply because the agents are going to be so powerful that people are not either gonna be ending up by pure luck with the app that they wanted, or ending up with something that they never wanted. And if they don't know how to debug their way out of it, they're just gonna spin their wheels into the ground. I'm also noticing that we're going away from seeing the code in many of these vibe coding apps. Like in Lovable, you could switch to dev mode, you can switch to a lot of these things, but like everything is becoming more hidden. And I get it; they're catering to an audience that want to read the code. But as you said, I think your goal needs to be to at least understand it a little bit.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're gonna put yourself in a big disadvantage at some point. So I feel like it's a mix of things, right? You're gonna be able to do some stuff very easily and very fast, but it's gonna be mostly based on pure luck or skill, depending on which side of the spectrum you fall on.
Unless you're technical like I am, then it's just like completely mind blowing what I'm able to accomplish because I'm technical. And when you're technical, it's as if being a trained classical music, musician, and all of a sudden you have robotic hands that can just do it a lot easier for you. But if you want to, you can still play. Right. You still understand. So it's very, very, and I'm a violinist, so that's very difficult, So yeah, it's just very, very cool. And so tell us about the 50 and 50 challenge before we go and where people can find you.
Yeah, sure. So the challenge originally, I started the challenge originally because I thought it's gonna take me a long time to learn how to do this. So I got to put myself in a position where I just have to build no matter what. So the original design for the challenge was, I'm going to deploy one app per week. So it's going to be 50 weeks, 50 apps, right? And I'm just going to start on January 1st. I get to take a couple of weeks off, but like I just thought it's going to take me a while, and it's going to take me a long time to figure it out. Turns out it wasn't that complicated, I guess. So right around like project 15 or 16, I felt like I'm in this perpetual loop where I'm getting a lot of dopamine out of it because I'm just launching every week and I'm very successful, but I'm not challenging myself to go deeper.
Right.
So right now, the 1550 challenge in the last month and a half or so has been a bit of a pivot where I'm trying to actually make money doing vibe coding. So it's like a journey to $50,000 vibe coding in 50 weeks. And I get to do all of these cool things and try different ways of making money while vibe coding, because I think that level of proof is what's lacking for most. Like building is very easy. Again, I'm trying to solve the distribution problem, which is a much bigger problem.
Makes a lot of sense. Awesome. So guys, I guess check you out on LinkedIn or...
Yeah, LinkedIn, my YouTube channel is a great resource. 1550 Challenge is the handle for my YouTube channel. I record tutorials, I record my app builds, stuff like that. That's where you can get like stuff like that on LinkedIn. Just share news, share stuff like that about what I do, what I build. And yeah, that's where.
Awesome, guys. Let us know in the comments what you're vibe coding and join the 50/50 challenge. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and we'll see you in the next one.